This is where we're seeing heavy rain, and that gust of wind should be approaching Hardinsburg as we speak. When we look at some of the reports that we've had across the area, we can see storm reports. We've had none, at least yet. Hard to get them oftentimes during the overnight hours simply because of, the nighttime. It makes it tough when everybody's asleep. It makes it tough when it's dark outside. All of this is occurring ahead of a powerful cold front. On the backside of this front, the temperature difference is drastic. Our numbers have been in the 70s. I mean, our temperature is 72 right now. And by this afternoon, we're talking temperatures in the 30s and wind chills even colder. So a big push of cold air is moving in with this front. Very dynamic situation that we have with very strong winds. We realized this about a week ago. And that's when we flagged this period, what we're seeing on this Tuesday and now into Wednesday, as an alert day. Let's zoom back in because, again, when we look at the warnings that we have, several across central Indiana, those are just outside of our viewing area. But the additional storms that we'll watch will be those ones to the south, including those storms for Breckinridge, Hancock, Perry counties. Tornado possible with that storm with wind speeds up to 70 miles an hour. It could be a doozy in some areas. That's, again, the only warning that we have in place for about another 15 minutes on the view. Now, we'll zoom back into that radar as we go a little tighter inside to Breckinridge County. I'll just square it up here and point out, again, the velocity, showing some of those stronger winds. So let's just do that. I'll just put the velocity on full, and you can see it's that leading edge right over the Hardinsburg area. Let's check in with Brian to see if we'd have any updates on the wind speed from the Mesonet.
Yeah, so far it has not hit the sensor yet. The last gust that I got from Hardinsburg area was coming in at roughly about 32 miles per hour. And again, that was a few moments ago. They're about 71 degrees, by the way, right now into the central portions of Breckinridge County. We're looking at here, it may be hard to see on this, but if you look right in the middle of the screen, there's some little areas of blue or purplish color. That is some of the shear markers, we call this. Some of the strongest of the winds really show up in this area as it moved out of Ohio County, Hancock County area, now moving into Hardinsburg area, into Breckinridge. I don't see it being a strong signal at the moment, but that's something we'll be watching. This is one way we can measure hail as well. The brighter the colors, the greater potential for hail. Notice that hail core, while it has changed in the past few scans, it is still quite present, especially north and west of Hardinsburg itself. And you still see quite a bit of lightning that is showing up, right? If there's going to be any hail coming out of the system still, it's going to be right there in Cloverport, crossing right over. Let me see if I can get a little closer here. Looks like 140 and, of course, US 60 and 195, I believe that is, tracking there as you head northwest of Hardinsburg. It's right on the Ohio River if there's going to be any hail reports there. So far, though, I haven't seen any official reports come in. The problem is it is 3:30 in the morning, 2:30 Central Time. It's tough to get a lot of reports this time of the day. Maybe some delayed reporting on that. That's something that we have to deal with. But right now, all we have is the data in front of us, and the radar is indicating this thing still got a decent amount of wind with it, quite a bit of lightning. And interesting, Kevin, to note that the lightning strikes keep trying to build more and more towards southern Harrison County, which is a sign, obviously, where the storm is wanting to build toward as the tops of that storm now. The actual cloud tops are now flying over the city of Louisville here.
Yeah, and we can see that. And we also note that the storm continues to pack a punch with that hail moving through Mattingly, Cloverport, right along the Ohio River. That is the zone from Hardinsburg to Cloverport on US 60. That's where you're running into some of that large hail, possibly up to the size of quarters. That is going to be moving off to the east right at about 50 to 60 miles an hour. Again, another 14 minutes on that severe thunderstorm warning as we look at the velocity. That's a measure of the wind that's pushing through the area. So that will be what we continue to watch, at least with this storm. And that is one of the few that we have across the area. When we go back to the home view, I'll put the radar back up for you. And when we look at the radar view, you'll see that additional storms will be moving in eventually out ahead of the front. These storms are well ahead of the front. These are the actual frontal storms back across southwest Indiana. So both of these will have the ability to move through the overnight hours. Again, we're just at about 3:30 in the morning. These thunderstorms are just now starting to expand, and that's thanks to breaking down the cap that's been on the atmosphere, sort of the lid that we've had. We've now started to erode that away, and that's allowing these storms to take off, especially with the low-level jet increasing. Those are very strong winds just above the surface, increases every night through the overnight hours, and that's another aiding factor in what we're seeing with these thunderstorms continuing to develop across the area. So the question is, will they continue to strengthen even more? And the answer is likely on some of these storms that we have, especially out ahead of that front that will be moving our way. That's providing that lift that we need for these thunderstorms as they move through the area. So will everybody see severe weather? No, not at all. Will places that see severe weather have terrible damage? No, not necessarily, but it is possible that we could see some very strong winds, hail, and even tornadoes with any of these storms that do develop through the overnight hours tonight. It's the same message we've been hitting home for the last several days. Is those are the threats. We just have to continue to watch it storm by storm. Brian?
All right. Yeah, and in fact, I was looking at some of the lightning strikes are showing up more and more into Harrison County. Look at the wind field, by the way. I'll get you back to just rain that is coming down now across the metro. Again, the lightning is stretching out to the northeast. So even here in Louisville, you're probably already hearing a bit of a rolling thunder that is taking place right now, again, as that storm moves to the north and to the east. Let me show you what it looks like. This is looking from downtown Louisville right now, actually from Corden area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan the camera a little more to the south to get a better handle on that cell that's moving into southern areas of Harrison County. Again, Harrison County guys are not under any type of warning, but more than likely you're already hearing some of the thunder outside as that cell continues to build into Harrison County, eventually right into Louisville. So I've got the camera at the moment. It's panning over now. We're scanning the skies, looking to the south to see how the storm evolves. The flag itself is blowing actually toward the camera, indicating a good south wind at the moment in that area. So at the moment, that is the main storm we're watching, and I have zero reports of anything on the severe side that's good. Let's hope we can hold on to the idea as it continues to evolve to the east. But you got to keep in mind, we're in the 70s. Dew points have been running generally well into the 50s to near 60 degrees. And not to be ignored, but we're starting to see the wind fields keep going up down the line on this same particular line of storms. In fact, this one looks really even worse right now with some of the wind field moving across central portions there of Ohio County, moving into Hancock County. So that, too, will be moving into Breckinridge. So Breckinridge, you're about to get a 1-2 punch ordeal, and it wouldn't surprise me. You could actually get perhaps another warning out of that if that signature on that radar continues to look like that, Kevin.
Yeah, and, very true. The first one went across the northern part of the county. This next storm will be going across the central and southern part of the county. Additional storms to our north continue to strengthen as well, a little bit slower than what we're seeing to the south, and that's because these southern storms are really feeding off of the intense southerly wind and the moisture. So it's usually the southern storms that get the greater attention in terms of strength and building as the night and day wears on. So again, let's just zoom back through what we have going on. No warnings in our viewing area to the north. The only warning we have is a severe thunderstorm warning. You say, well, why are you on talking nonstop? Well, because it's 3 a.m. in the morning and nothing else is on. Early today was here. We knew weather radios were going off. We saw the hail threat. Thought we'd jump on and give you a weather update. We're going to stay on just for a while longer as this storm continues to move through Hardinsburg and Irvington. Happens to be the most populated area of Breckinridge County. So we're here for you. You'll notice along US 60 is where we have some of those stronger storms moving now toward the Irvington area. We'll eventually cross over Brandenburg, heavy rain, some lightning there, but no severe weather across Meade County and no severe weather south of Hardinsburg yet. But watch what we're pointing out. And that's the next area of storms that we'll be watching. Now, you can already see some of that purple color indicating strengthening heights and hail potential with that storm and the little notch or the bowing segment. Those are the ones we have to watch in a scenario like this. When you have a linear system, what we're looking for is embedded within that line would be little
Hardinsburg,
kinks.
by the way, 53 miles per hour.
Okay, so that was the latest wind speed at 53 miles an hour out of the Hardinsburg area. area. So that was from the Mesonet station there. One storm moving through. This is the sort of core of that one. And then this will be the next one that we watch. This one will likely continue to increase as it moves off to the east, moving likewise at about that 50 to 60 mile per hour time frame. We'll watch to see if that increases in intensity, and should that continue to increase, a new warning would come out for that across Ohio County into central and southern parts of Breckinridge County. So we're always looking for what is coming up next, and that would be next in line. Boom, there you have it. That new warning is just out from the National Weather Service, and this is what we're watching. This is how severe weather works, and you're seeing it play out. Oftentimes during the day, when we're on and have a lot of folks that may be tuned into a popular TV show, we don't want to be on just sitting here rambling, but overnight, you can sort of get the behind-the-scenes feel of what happens during the day. Again, radar indicated for this storm, 60-mile-per-hour winds, 1-inch hail. This is moving across Breckinridge, Hancock, and parts of Ohio County. That includes, again, the Hardinsburg area. It'll go just south of you as that moves through. So as Brian pointed out a while ago, it was a 1-2 punch. Now the whole county has been affected by this storm. You still have plenty of time before it arrives. I mean, sort of speaking, we've got this moving at about 50 to 60 miles an hour, so we don't have a ton of time, but you can see how far displaced to the west the storm is from actually moving into Breckinridge County. Brian, let's talk a little bit about sort of linear storms versus those individual discrete supercells. What we'll be watching overnight tonight will be these storms that our clusters are in a line, and we really have to pick out within those storms if we have any type of rotation.
Yeah, now this is the thing. We were expecting two different waves to pass through the area tonight. One would be in supercell form, the other into a linear form. The supercell form did develop, but a lot of it developed into central Indiana and up towards Chicago, which they were fully expecting there, did produce a tornado in that area. We did not see as much action in southern Indiana. That's a good thing. No one's going to complain about that. But now we're seeing a mix, really, of a linear form, but individual cells along that line. And this is where, as I always say, things get very tricky, especially in the middle of the night, is when you have a line of storms and it's got the wiggles to it, little kinks. Anytime you see that more of a wavy pattern, you've got to watch for any one of those notches that can briefly produce a tornado. In fact, that's probably our most common form of tornado that we witness in wave country is along a line like this, and majority of them actually are in the middle of the night when they take place. So they're very difficult to pick out. You don't have the ability to see them because you're usually going to be involved with rain being around either side of it. So we only have the tools of the radar and Mesonet stations on the ground to give us an idea on some of the wind speeds. And we can tell you about looking at the radar signature. Overall, these will have little Boeing segments that will be straight line winds. Absolutely. But there will be a couple of cases here that rotation may develop at times. Just as soon as it develops, it can easily just disappear. And that's the challenge the Weather Service has, because they're the ones that issue the warnings. They've got to be ahead of that as much as they possibly can. What we're trying to do is be ahead of it altogether and just make sure you're aware of the potential for isolated tornadoes, but certainly more of an issue of straight line winds, very heavy rainfall, and a lot of lightning. And we just got to take each storm cell one at a time, Kevin, and starting to see more of that building up a little more and more as that cap erodes away there into central Kentucky to Louisville.
Yeah, and we'll start to hear more thunder, see a little more lightning. The heavy rain will move in. And again, as Brian mentioned, just really analyzing each of these individual cells along these lines to see if there's any type of rotation that could briefly put down an isolated tornado. That's what we have to worry about in systems like this, especially the ones that move through during the overnight hours. That is something we'll have to watch. We see the interaction of these boundaries oftentimes where these cells sort of merge together. That creates a brief spin up of what we would see along that line. We only have severe thunderstorm warnings out at this point. In our viewing area, it's all for Breckinridge County, but just about the whole county. One storm's moving across the northern part, moving over into Meade County. That is no longer severe warned, at least at this point, for Meade County. Again, that pushes right through US 60. And then to the south, we still await the next round as it moves out of parts of Ohio and Hancock County, and that will move across central and southern parts of Breckinridge County. So for folks in Breckinridge County, the weather radio has gone off twice now, and you're like, what is going on? Well, you've had two storms moving through, the line of storms really sitting right over top of you. I'm going to go back to the home view for folks that aren't in Breckinridge County, and you're like, well, what about me? All right, well, we have still a few storms yet to go. This is the actual front back here. Once this passes by, the threat of any severe weather is over, and then your temperatures go down from there. We'll be in the 30s later this afternoon. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's actually 3:40 in the morning. It's 72 degrees. That's close to a record high, and it's in the middle of the night. This gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. It's not normal, and Mother Nature likes to be normal, or at least balanced. We're nowhere close to that. We have this front that will move through. These storms continue to fire up, but really it's those southern storms that get the bulk of the energy, and that's why we're seeing these thunderstorms approach and in some cases exceed severe limits now across parts of Breckinridge County. As Brian mentioned, the storms continue to expand farther to the north, and that means some showers and thunderstorms, hearing some thunder here in Louisville, continue to spread closer to us. Brian?
All right. We just, Tawana Andrew just sent out a notification to the Wave Weather app that for those of you watching right now in Louisville and points just to the south, likely hearing some of that thunder. We do have some strong thunderstorms now moving into the metro. The good news is it looks like the severe thunderstorm warning for at least the first cell that's right there over Hardinsburg and central areas of Breckinridge County, that will be allowed to expire. They're not going to issue one to the east as of yet. So now the main warning is just for that pocket of very strong wind that's moving out of Ohio County into Hancock County and then eventually southern Breckinridge County. That will be our main focal point for the next 30 minutes. Still seeing the pocket of wind, but I am not seeing anything in terms of a rotating thunderstorm or anything to that limit, which is good. But we need to monitor it as it heads off to the east. But right now, it looks like it's mainly just going to be a burst of some strong wind gusts. And I was watching back into McLean County, and it got winds there of about 50 to 55 miles per hour as well as it passed through. So that's likely what you can expect as it holds together very close to Fordsville as you're about to cross the county line over into Breckinridge, Kevin.
Yeah, and outside of that burst of wind, 50, 55 mile per hour winds, we can handle that. We've already seen that in Hardinsburg. We've had 38 mile per hour winds here in Louisville just at the top of the hour. So those kind of winds we can handle. What we can't handle would be the spin-ups that occur embedded within this line if that were to occur. And that's just a continuous monitoring of what is going on within that line of storms. And at this point, we have no type of rotation showing up along that line, at least nothing that's alarming. Nothing that's being warned for. It really is the potential is still there, and the wind field will continue to stay strong through the next few hours. So our zone is still being monitored, if you will, and we have to continue to be vigilant on each of these storms along this line as that moves through, both for wind and the potential for hail and, of course, tornadoes. For instance, you can see right along the Indiana-Ohio border. That's the first tornado we have noted out of that system. It moved all the way across Illinois, Indiana. Now it's crossing over into Ohio, but that's the first tornado warning that we've seen out of that. So it still remains possible with the conditions of the atmosphere that anywhere along this line, both lines, you can see the front and then what's out ahead of it, it's still possible and realistic that we could see as it moves into an environment with plenty of wind energy that we could spin up a tornado. So that's, again, the biggest concern for a system like this during the overnight hours. We've got several warnings, both severe thunderstorm and now a tornado warning just outside of the area. And in our viewing area, it is a severe thunderstorm warning for Breckinridge County, and that's in place for another 15 minutes. Notice the snow on the backside of this system. That's an indicator of just how cold that air is that will be moving in overnight tonight. The front will pass through, and once that front slides past, it'll take all the thunderstorms and lightning with it, and our numbers will drop fast. 16 more minutes left on the Breckinridge storm. That expires at 4 o'clock. Brian?
And by the way, Tawana and I were looking, we added sleet into the forecast in about 4 hours from now. So sleet as colder weather moves in. So yeah, kind of a wild setup. One thing I'm noting here, there's not a lot of lightning with that particular cell that's moving out of Ohio County and Hancock County. So that's a good sign. It's still got a good signature on the radar. It's heavy rain, but I'm not seeing anything overly concerning right now. We are, again, able to track the tops of these storms. And sometimes these really can tell the story of how things are trending up or down as far as severity goes. And when you're looking at the colors, when they start to enhance, it tells us the thunderstorm is growing in height. And when we see that happen along with an increase in the lightning bolts in that same spot, that thunderstorm is getting stronger. In the past couple of scans, of the storm in far eastern areas of Breckinridge County. It's at 35,000 feet. It's right there near severe limits, but it is trying to gain some height, and the lightning has increased. So yes, this particular warning is set to expire. Already has, in fact, about a minute ago. But as it moves into the southern part here of Meade County, just be aware it's trying to pulse back up, as we call that, and gain a little bit more height. So there is a chance we could still get a strong wind gust or even some small hail out of that as it heads very close to the radar beam just south of Fort Knox and West Point, Kentucky there, Kevin. All
right. We'll be watching it. It's the only warning that we have in play is the one that's now moving across parts of Hancock County that will move right into central and southern parts of Breckinridge County. Just zoom in a little tighter, noting that these storms still holding their own back along the front itself. That will be pushing through, but the impact is greater to the south, and that's what we've been noting. I'm going to zoom in. You'll notice the little notch here. We do have the potential for some small hail. That's passing just north of Fordsville, moving through Easton. As that moves into Breckinridge County, this will be the area from Hardinsburg down toward Axtell or the Rough River Lake area that we see the greatest wind potential. And as we pointed out, what's being measured on the order of 50 to 60 miles per hour. That's just slightly around or just below severe limits, but nonetheless still powerful. And with the alerts going off, we're just here to pass along the information that we have. And at this point, it's not, we never expected a massive severe weather outbreak. We weren't even certain there would actually be tornado warnings, which we haven't had any in our viewing area. This is the only series of warnings, both for northern Breckinridge and now southern Breckinridge, that we've even had at this point. But it's important to caution that we're not through this. We still have a very strong wind field. We've eroded the cap across the area, and the front, which provides the lift, is now moving through. And we could still see some strong storms and even the potential along this line to see some rotation, even though it's not there right now. We'll take you a wider view. You'll notice the frontal boundary itself, area of low pressure dragging through the Great Lakes. This spawned a number of storms through the Chicago area, including tornadoes in the Chicago area, northern Indiana, and then now the cold fronts being sort of drugged past our area. And that's bringing with it the chance for showers and storms as we see these air masses clash against one another, going from the very warm temperature in the 70s to temperatures in the 30s with wind chills in the 20s later this afternoon. You can see to the north, we have that tornado warning farther to the north. We have had 53-mile-per-hour gust reported out of the Mesonet station in Hardinsburg, and that's been the greatest wind speed that we've noted so far. Brian?
All right. Sorry. Checking a couple of the wind fields here real quick. My system, I can't see the radar right now. Apparently lightning's got a hold of it, so I am down on my end. But you can certainly see from the SkyTrack camera, this is where some of the rain and the wind is moving in right now across the central portions of Jefferson County. That's a live look at Ollie International. Been trying to track some of the wind gusts there so far. Been staying roughly under 40 miles per hour, but it's possible as that line is developing a little more and more right into Jefferson County, we may see some of those wind gusts get over 40 as it moves on by. I'm not seeing anything else as far as the other Kentucky Mesonet sites indicate anything on the really strong or severe side. But no doubt, Kevin, I got a feeling a lot of folks, it's that time of the morning anyway. Many about to wake up, get ready for work and/or school, and waking up to the sound of thunder outside. So that's why we're on. Just make sure that everyone knows that at the moment there's nothing overly severe happening. There's a warning that is out, but we've had nothing severe as far as damage that's been reported. Yeah, and nothing overly concerning even when we look forward. So we're not on because we think, oh, it's going to be doom and gloom. We're on simply because we have had a number of alerts being issued during the overnight where we had the potential to see the rotation. That means a tornado threat during the overnight, which is always concerning because it's when people are asleep. We've had no tornado warnings in our viewing area. We have the one just north of the viewing area. That one will approach the Dayton, Ohio area. Let me go back to the radar. I'm going to go to our view home, and then let's just zoom in now to the metro. Let me click the zoom, and then we'll just zoom in and show you that we do have some rain. You saw the rain on the lens out at the airport, which is right there. And you'll notice the heavier rain in Jefferson counties from Shively, PRP, Valley Station. Likely seeing a little bit of lightning and hearing some thunder with that. In fact, we can put the bolts on just to show you where we have some of the lightning, and indeed we do. So this could be waking you up.
Again, we said we would be here overnight, not severe, not for us, but it is producing some rain and some heavy rain in places along with that lightning. Back to the radar view we go. I'm going to zoom back out. Let's go to our home view. You will see that the severe thunderstorm warning we have is for the storm that's now moving into western parts of Hardin County. When we zoom into western Hardin County, you'll see that storm has passed Fordsville, moving toward parts of moving across parts of Breckinridge County, including areas south of Hardinsburg. I'm going to pan the radar over.
Take a look, Kevin. I'm looking at it as well. On the southern part there of Meade and northeast Breckinridge, Rosetta into about Big Spring, there is a bit of broad rotation just now developed, and I just saw the mesonet has jumped up to about 36 miles per hour, not far from that site there.
All right, so you're looking right, let me get my bearings here. I've zoomed in so tight. Let's see, Hardinsburg, so you're over here closer to Meade County, which is going to be right in this area. Yeah, very close to the corners area. Let me just put on the velocity, and we can see rotation a little better with velocity. And yeah, you can see it's sort of broad. It's tough to see, but would be
it's
right
so close to the beam there, so it's hard to pick it out.
Sort of scatters it out, but that would be the general zone. Again, that's outside of the warning area at this point, but that's the velocity. So it's those types of things within the radar sort of line of storms that we have to watch and pick out and see scan by scan what happens. And sometimes, because it takes a little bit of time for the radar to make the scan, sometimes the weather can happen in between scans and a tornado can touch down quick, dip back up. That's just the way it works. It's very fast. It's fluid, and it's something that we have to pay very close attention to, especially on a night like tonight. With this said, you'll notice the warning continuing for another 7 minutes. If this warning is allowed to expire with no additional warnings, we'll get you back to programming so we can reset for the 4:30 news. But all in all, we will continue to watch these storms as they move through the area overnight tonight and through the early morning hours, impacting some people a little more than others. The only warning that we have is for parts of Breckinridge County, and that includes areas down toward the Rough River Lake area. I was zooming back into that, wanted to jump back and just show you some of the velocity from this storm. Still the potential for some small hail with that, moving through McQuady, and this will move very close to Axtell and Kingswood, mainly south of Hardinsburg for the strongest wind and potential for that hail. And then I'm just going to zoom this box out. And then now let's look at the velocity. This time I'll use just one of our scopes. I'll pick the scope and the velocity scope it is. So velocity first, and then maybe we can look at the hail in just a second. When we look at that velocity, let me just move this around. And I'm just making this a little larger. Tough to pick that out anywhere other than where we would see it to our south. So pushing through 105 as you work your way to 261. Some strong winds possible within that zone. Outside of that, we have a push of heavy rain and possibly some small hail that's going to be moving through. Brian, what do you have?
I've been watching the lightning increasing too. Valley Station along Dixie Highway. Let me show you what it looks like. This is not too far from there. This is at Ollie International at the moment, and this is where we've had the rain. Lightning at times has been lighting up there as well. The wind just jumped up to 30 miles per hour there. Not overly strong, but certainly a sign that at least the edge of that is now moving into the central portions there of Jefferson County. Again, just watching the lightning, doing a bit of an uptick, so I'm likely waking up a lot of you a little earlier than you probably want it to be this morning. But it's right there again along Valley Station, PRP area, along the Snyder Freeway, the Jefferson Memorial Forest, all the way to New Cut Road. So this is building toward Okolona and into Bullitt County. And again, we've seen some signs here, some strong winds at times that keep showing up on a scan, and then it fades out, then it's back again right after that. So I think that'll be the trend as it moves on by. But right now, there's no warnings or anything like that for Louisville. But we are certainly watching this cluster of storms as it actually is several now that are back building to the south and west. So we have a line here we'll be watching. But look how this is all just filling in. It's just a lot of noise out there. Now the cap is pretty much eroded away in all areas. It's free reign for the atmosphere now. So what it's doing is it's trying to fill in everything it can, and all these cumulus clouds are building up, and you're getting thunderstorms blossoming in all areas. They all don't turn severe, though. It's only the ones that can get organized, and that's where we have to try to pick them out and find the ones that are trying to get to that level, Kevin. And that's like sometimes like a needle in a haystack, but you got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and oftentimes what we wind up seeing is just sort of a big wet mess out of something like this where the storms all develop. None of them can get organized because they're battling for the same energy of the atmosphere, and it winds up just raining a decent amount as it pushes through. Now, one reason we don't have to worry about so much on the flooding side of things on this is because we have the forward motion that's moving it out of here. This front is not slow. It's going to push it through, and that means a return to some windy and colder temperatures. New severe thunderstorm warning that's just been issued. Let's go to that, and you'll notice where that is included. This is going to be for parts of Breckinridge, Hardin, and Meade counties. That's for that same storm that's moving through parts of central Breckinridge County. Heaviest part of that's just south of Hardinsburg. We'll take that over toward Custer, move it through Hardin County near Howe Valley, Big Clifty, and over E-Town would be on the very southern edge of that.
Now they're putting this as a tag as considerable damage threat.
Yeah, 70-mile-per-hour winds on that. Hail size, 1.75. So a little bit higher on that as well from what we've seen on the quarter size. So now we're up to closer to golf ball size hail potential. So you're right. This has the potential. If there was going to be a storm that could take advantage of the atmosphere, usually it's the one as we bring in the southerly winds. This would be a candidate for that. We see this little appendage hanging down, possible hail. This would be one that we have to watch for signs of rotation. It's this storm that is now warned for a severe thunderstorm warning. That warning will go until 4:30 Eastern time, 3:30 Central time for the folks out there. We have our newscast coming up at 4:30 as well. So we'll be here all morning, through the entire morning, keeping an eye on these storms. They'll be out of here before the Today Show comes on at 7 o'clock for most of us. Brian?
All right, just FYI as well, the Weather Service, Storm Prediction Center, both working together. They've extended the tornado watch till 9 o'clock this morning. So you'll see that scrolling on the bottom of your screen there until, again, 9 o'clock for the area. There are two areas, Kevin, that are really standing out. Still watching that odd little appendage, if you will, from the first storm that moved out of Breckinridge County that's very close to the radar beam, so it's going to be very difficult here. We have access to another radar off to the side that we can look at. I'll try to get a gander at that here in just a second, but no doubt some strong winds very close to Radcliffe. We'll be watching that. And the second one, which again, anytime you see a lot of lightning clustered together, that's when you need to really watch to see if things getting stronger. And that certainly that second one is.
And that's really the one that has the attention for now, is this one that continues that warning until 4:30. That's the one that has the potential as we look a little closer for hail. And I'll just zoom back in. We'll put the hail monitor on that. We have a scope for that. We'll zoom in pretty tight so you can see it. And then we just go to our scopes here, and let's choose the hail scope. We also have debris scope, the velocity scope. So let's take a closer view. This will give us an idea of the hail size within this. As we look, not so impressive. We look back to the west as the storm moves through. So we're less than nickel to quarter size on this, but nonetheless, a pretty small area, but a confined area where we could have some of that small hail, very heavy rain, and again, somewhat of a bowing segment, which would indicate the push of wind. And that appendage is ominous as well, just simply because of the potential for the wind that would be associated with that. So that's south of the Hardinsburg area at this point. We also have, as we pan this radar over, you'll see that the warning information stays up. Moving through Breckinridge County near Locust Hill, another push of wind possible there. The storm that we were watching across parts of Meade County, this is the county line, Breckinridge, we get into Meade County here. So now we're over into Meade County. There's Flaherty. And now we're looking at Akron, Guston, Hillgrove, US 60. That's another area where we noted some strong wind out ahead of that storm. Grampton, Muldrow, Rockhaven, just to get your idea of bearings together. Louisville is just up here. And that's, again, the two pockets of greatest wind when we look at what's happening on the radar. We go back to the home view just to point out that so many of you aren't seeing anything. And it's going to be a night to where, you know, we're going to wind up with some rain, thunder in most places, but severe weather is going to be very limited. We already see that taking place. The one thing we noted in the data, if you've been watching us, we've been on our social streams, we've been on the 24/7 Weather Channel, we were on Wave News at 11, we were back on at 1:30 in the morning. One thing that we kept saying was that the models sort of failed in that initial push of those clusters of storms that they had throughout the day, developing by midnight or so. It just didn't happen. This is all out ahead of the front. So this is what we're dealing with, the prefrontal storms with this moving through. And the models had that part too, but we missed out on the first round of storms. Brian?
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Those supercells were nasty earlier into Indiana and around Chicago, but we've got our hands full here trying to keep an eye on these to make sure that these stay within a certain limit, we hope, as we get into a very crucial time in the morning. A lot of you waking up. School's about to get going, bus stops, we understand. So a lot of parents are, concerned about all the heavy rain and lightning in the area. These are moving fast. It's one thing I can tell you is good. The problem is that there's more that kind of backbuild. So this is going to take a while to get all these different lines through here. And there'll be a varying intensity as they pass into wave country. This particular one now into Louisville Metro, by the way, that still has that small pocket of wind right there near Radcliffe. That's going to be moving right into Bullitt County. Right now we've got heavy rain, lightning, thunder right over Raleigh International. So far, the wind gusts there hasn't been overly strong. I think the last number I saw was a 31 miles per hour. It's still holding 31 miles per hour at about 71 degrees there. And then that second one that's moving off to the south, this is also the one that we're watching that it's had some pockets of wind with it. It's been moving across areas of Breckinridge County. Here's the first one. You can see the wind track on that. It's still showing that all the way in northern areas of Hardin County. And here comes the second one that is now heading into the southern portion there of Breckinridge County. Both are not strong signals, but both do certainly tell us there's certainly some wind energy here, and you can get gusts that could get to severe limits as they move on by. So it's not just the hail, it's also, of course, the wind that we watching. But these two look to be the strongest ones right now.
The latest report out of Hardinsburg happens to be that we do have pea-sized hail falling there. Here in Louisville, no severe weather at this point. You saw the SkyTrack camera there showing the rainy conditions out at the airport, and we have rain falling across the southern half of Jefferson County. Very little here downtown. This is the cold front sitting back to the west of us. Sharp drop in temperatures as that front moves through during the morning hours. So we're going to notice that southern Indiana will be in the clear within the next couple of hours, and then we'll push that front through parts of Kentucky as the morning wears on. Brian noted that the Storm Prediction Center and the local National Weather Service extending that tornado watch until 9 o'clock in the morning. Again, we were saying between when we were on the air and through about 8 a.m., so close to what we were thinking on the time of expiration. Nonetheless, currently happens to be the warnings that are in place, and it is the one warning that includes parts of Breckinridge, Hardin, and Meade counties. Considerable threat with a radar-indicated storm that could produce winds of 70 miles per hour. That's what we're dealing with. That is the storm that has had a history of producing winds upwards of 50 to 60 miles per hour. Other storms along this line are not and have not been severe. The storms that are moving across northern parts of Bullitt County have previously been severe but are no longer. And now we're watching the storm in Breckinridge County. We'll go in a little bit closer to that. That is the storm and the only storm at this point that is severe. I'll zoom in tight and then we'll work our way as we bring this storm off to the east. It's moving fairly fast. The storms have been moving on the order of 50 to 60 miles per hour. This is the core of that storm. You'll notice the little appendage that's down with the Boeing area. That storm has the potential to produce winds of 60 possibly 70 miles per hour, as indicated by the warning. That's an area where we also have the small hail potential at this point, but we have also noted several bolts of lightning with that. And that could be waking some folks up saying, hey, what's going on? What's a severe thunderstorm warning that's happening over your area? That's about it at this point. Nothing major. Pop our radar back on, and then we'll look at the velocity. Again, when we check velocities, we're always looking for some of that embedded rotation within that line. We have a little bit of strong wind showing up. Velocity gives us an idea of the wind field within that storm, and that's what we are noting. Some wind right around the Burris Dyer area as we bring this storm eventually over into parts of Hardin County as we cross that county line coming up within the next probably 5 to 10 minutes. Brian?
All right, I was just checking. I mentioned that other radar, we call it the terminal radar, which is located a little closer to Mount Washington. There is some wind, nothing severe that I noted, but a strong wind field right into this appendage here as it's moving across Bullitt County. So more likely you may hear a bit of a gust taking place as it passes overhead. We do have a Kentucky mesonet there into Shepherdsville. I'm waiting to see once it passes that area if we get a number on it. The last report I have is about 18 miles per hour. So I don't think it's fully gotten to that area yet. And then we'll just have to keep an eye on the wind fields to the south and west. Certainly the one that's now approaching into the Hardinsburg area again, those strong winds. And you guys up in Indiana, we're not ignoring you by any stretch. And so far, it's just a wall of lightning and rain coming through. There's a bit of wind, but it's relatively just a very quick hitting system. The average speed on these are about 55 to 60 miles per hour. They don't last very long. You just may have more than one pass through your area. At the moment, the way this is looking, considering that we still got temperatures in the 70s, dew points a little closer to 60, and especially in this area of Kentucky, this will be an area to watch over the next, I would say, 90 minutes for an occasional pulse up, if you will, on the intensity that could get close to severe limits there.
And I mean, the temperature difference is stark between what's ahead of that front with us in the 70s and what's behind it with temperatures in some cases in the single digits way up north. But boy, a sharp, drastic contrast from when you step out the door this morning to what you're going to notice later today as those temperatures come crashing down. Again, we're looking at the velocity here. Let me just put the radar back on for you. We'll put this into motion so you can see its forward movement. Again, when we put it in play, you'll notice those storms passing through and moving very fast. So we're looking at a 3-hour loop that will take it right across parts of northern and central parts of Hardin County as we roll within the next few minutes. So a very fast moving system, but one that is really producing minor severe weather at this time. And with the atmosphere primed for conditions in terms of wind, the late start has certainly been to our benefit of what we're seeing unfold across the area. Not ready to just, close up shop and say we're finished. No, that's not the case. We could still have some pretty intense storms move through. In fact, we have a storm now that has the ability to produce those 70-mile-per-hour winds. That's radar indicated, but it is one that's still powerful for folks down to the south. We keep zooming in and out of our storms just to give you an idea of what's happening. Again, southern parts of Jefferson County, thunder, lightning, heavy rain. That's moving through Okolona over toward Glen Mary. That will continue pushing off to the east. And the storm to our south that is severe across Breckinridge, parts of Hardin County, southern Meade County, and parts of Bullitt County would be next if this storm extends farther to the east. At this point, the cold front still sits just out to the west. And until that passes, we have the threat for some of these thunderstorms. Some of those could be severe. By morning, even when the front has passed, we're going to be dealing with some strong winds on the order of 35-mile-per-hour gust. The wind advisory is in place until 4 p.m., and that's just because of the strong winds behind this front. So eventually we'll turn our winds from the south. Our winds have been coming in from the south at 20 miles an hour, gusting to 31. Eventually behind this front, our winds come in from the north. And that's really going to be strong, and it's going to work to cool us down at a pretty rapid rate. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for another 22 minutes, parts of Breckinridge County, Hardin County, southern Meade County of Kentucky. Brian's keeping a close eye on that, and we zoom back in and give another update, Brian.
All right, three things that I'm noticing here. I know we got about 20 minutes, and we'll be getting ready for our sunrise show here to start. Tawana standing by to help us out as well. And you got three areas right now that I see, especially across areas of Bullitt County. This particular one near Radcliffe still showing a pocket of wind with it. Also the one located, as we mentioned, in eastern areas of Breckinridge County, crossing very close to the southern fringe there of Meade County and northwest section there of Hardin County. And this is new development right over the E-Town area. Let me take you down into E-Town. Let's bring up the camera feed there. This is going to be very close to 31W down into E-Town. The storm itself is just actually south of where this camera is. Can't tell too much yet, but this will be a camera feed we'll be watching as we head through the morning. You see a little bit of lightning there showing up in the corner of the screen. So again, that is new development that's not popping in. Nothing severe, but every time we see something new that pops on the radar, we have to just monitor, especially in central Kentucky, for anything that can turn strong, producing some damage winds, maybe some hail as it moves on by. But so far, these are some big-time gully washers coming through the area, passing through. It looks like Kevin Rain total about, 3/10, more than a quarter of an inch, as that's almost a half inch as you head toward Valley Station areas that pass by.
Yeah, dumping quite a bit in some isolated areas. You see close to downtown, hardly anything at all. So it really depends on where you are in terms of where these storms pass by. They produce heavy amounts of rain for some, lightning, thunder for others, burst of winds for isolated areas. But the majority of us will see far less rain, far less wind, far less risk of severe weather. So when we look at that, we sort of paint a broad brush saying, hey, in this general zone, we have the potential. And that's what's important to be prepared for. You just have to be prepared. And if you have a plan, you're going to be fine. The alerts are only going off for a certain number of you, and those are in the warned areas. And for those folks, you're tuning in. Hopefully everybody else is home in bed and not having to worry about what's happening. But if they wake up and say, hey, I wonder, what was that thunder? They turn the TV on. Here we are, letting you know, there's no problems for most of us, but we do have the warning to our south. We are watching out ahead of the front, which includes most of us still. The front's just now moving into the northwestern part of our viewing area. And as that front makes its way off to the south, the threat of any type of severe weather will come to an end. Back to the radar we go as we zoom in just a little bit tighter across the area. We have noted some lightning nearby, and that lightning and thunder probably waking folks up. And we're getting closer to the morning sunrise, which means, hey, it's time for work, right? So, and school. So we've got people wanting to know what the weather's going to be like. Again, pea-sized hail has been reported out of Hardinsburg. It's back here. That was with this storm and the one that moved through earlier. This storm is now moving out of Breckinridge County. It's right on the corner of the triple point from Meade, Breckinridge, and Hardin County. This is the area where we would have some of that heavier rain pushing through and the potential for some strong wind if it were going to be there. We can see some of the wind based on the radar's perspective. With that, it doesn't look all that impressive. We've noted from some of our Kentucky Mesonet sites that those winds have been just below severe limits, ranging closer to 50 miles per hour. Brian pointed out that we have the thunderstorms around parts of E-Town. That's moving across far eastern Hardin County. Nelson County would be next in line to see some of these storms. Bullitt County, Shepherdsville, you're seeing some of the storms. As we pan the radar down in Jefferson County, we're dry downtown, Highlands, Shively, PRP, Linden, Prospect, all dry. Places like Middletown, J-Town, Okolona, Fern Creek, over to Simpsonville, pushing into parts of northern Spencer County. You're seeing some of these showers and thunderstorms move in, producing heavy rain, but not severe weather. The severe threat limited still at this point, areas to our south. And that's where we see that one lone severe thunderstorm warning. Brian?
All right. First off, the warning itself that was out there for Breckinridge County, they did readjust it to a 60 mile per hour potential instead of a 70. That's good. Still, though, this cell is still strung out ahead of it, moving to Bullitt County. I'm mentioning it because a lot of you are seeing a lot of low-hanging clouds in that area. I'm seeing a lot of social media reports starting to come in about this as if it's passing overhead. Again, we had no confirmation of anything touching down or anything like that, but we have seen some general rotation with that as it moved on by, but not to the point of being overly alarmed. So we'll be watching it carefully as it moves into Bullitt County. Right now, again, there's no strong signal for that. This still is the strongest one, still has that more of a straight line wind scenario to it that is moving into the core there of Hardin County at the moment, not too far away from E-Town and just south of E-Town. E-Town, you pretty much have it on either side of you at the moment, where you've got the strong thunderstorms now developing right across the parkways, heading into Bardstown, tracking off to the east. And you got more lines into Indiana, but Indiana, you guys so far, it's been a wave of lightning and rain. I'm not seeing anything overly severe with that at all. It'll pass on by. And then once you get beyond this, there's where the cold area is, by the way, just to the west of us. Temperatures here, these are this spot here, this blue, this is in the 30s. So it is a dramatic drop that is about to slam in the area. And you can see what's happening to the radar is all these storms are reacting and building all ahead of the edge of that cold spell that's moving in, a cold Arctic attack in February, diving in from the northwest. And these thunderstorms will continue to blend together. We'll likely just see one big solid line out of this. It'll take another couple of hours, but that would be more of an issue for central and southern Kentucky about mid-morning.
Yeah, I think it was the 70s that launched the attack.
Right.
They're the ones that weren't welcome this time of year, right?
Right, exactly.
But all of us are like, man, this is nice. Yeah, well, it's nice until you have to pay for it with rounds of thunderstorms like this, where we have to stay up all night and track these potential. All right, 70 still the temperature. Wind gusting 20, but gusting to 31. That's down from the 38-mile-per-hour gust we had within the last hour. Severe thunderstorm warning now moving into Hardin County. On alert would be Southern Bullitt into western Nelson County. So that's one would be put you on standby for potential warnings with that. The front itself starting to move into the western part of our viewing area, including Lawrence, Jackson, down into Orange counties. Once that front passes by, the threat of severe weather ends, and that will allow those cooler temperatures to move in. You're going to see that sharp drop take us into the morning hours. We're at 4:15 in the morning. We've got another 15 minutes on this lone warning that we still have. Again, still seeing in the atmosphere that potential, but it's fairly low. We haven't seen a whole lot of it in our viewing area, but that's not been the case everywhere, and I'm talking about rotation. With that said, we're on for folks that have the warnings going on. And you're waking up and you're saying, man, they mentioned tornadoes before I went to bed. I wonder if that's happening. And if you just turned the TV on and nothing was going on, you wouldn't know. So being that it's overnight and we know people want to rest, we're letting you know. Most of you should be able to rest. If the alarms go off, tune in. We're going to show you what's happening. But at this point, this is the strongest storm. Nothing concerning at this point with what's moving across Louisville. Nothing concerning with what's moving across parts of central Indiana up toward Seymour, northern parts of Washington County at this point. Our focus is on this one storm that's moving across now into Hardin County and extreme southern parts of Meade County. So when we look at that, that's where we have the greatest push of wind. That is where we have the greatest amount of energy. That is the biggest potential for any type of severe weather, which obviously is why it's under the warning. It has the warning attached to it. That's the storm passing by Big Spring near Vertrees. That will approach and move just south of the Radcliffe area. That's going to cross over 31W within the next 10 to 15 minutes. Brian?
All right. I got an updated wind gust, by the way. Ollie, it was at 41 miles per hour as that band pushed through. And I checked, still seeing some of the wind fields elevated, I would say about 40 miles per hour in eastern Jefferson County. So if you're along the Snyder Freeway, G-Town area, Electron Drive, all the way down to Seatonville Road, likely have some gusty winds there. Also, same being said for Shepherdsville, a burst of strong winds there. It's just now arriving at the Mesonet sensor. Right now, it's at 23 miles per hour. It takes about 5 minutes to get an update on the wind. So we'll be watching to see how that, especially the southern part of that, just north of 11 Junction, as it moves across Bullitt County. And again, that pocket of wind, too, moving right over the central portions there of Hardin County. But all this is very much borderline issue when it comes to these stronger wind gusts. And I haven't had any reports of hell other than the P-size report that was back into Breckinridge County earlier in Hardinsburg. That's the only one I've had so far, Kevin. It doesn't mean we can't get more. It's certainly possible. But the threat for a while there this afternoon, early evening, or yesterday, I should say, was that we could see large hail. That would have been from the supercells, mainly from Indiana, since those developed a little more to the north, not so much in southern Indiana. We avoided that really large hail threat. I really don't see that being a big concern here at all for the early morning.
Yeah, our biggest deal happens to be wind, and we're seeing that pocket of wind down in Hardin County from this storm, probably going to go just north of the E-Town area. So in between Radcliffe and E-Town, stand the chance to see the greatest wind right along 31W over the next 10 minutes or so. But again, a wind maker is right, along with some heavy rain for some folks, heavier in places than for others. So when we, again, look at some of our reports, we can look at some of those rain reports. Let's just pop them on. You can see what we're looking at. Areas over toward Brandenburg, over a half an inch. Hardinsburg, third of an inch of rain. Quarter of an inch of rain from the airport, while Shelbyville's picked up over 6/400ths of an inch. So we've had some areas in the last 24 hours. Remember, some of this was from this morning's rain. So we go back 24 hours on the gauges here, but that's what we've picked up. When we look at some of the rain in the metro area, when we look at those rain reports, our MSD totals will show a different story. Across Jefferson County, this is since midnight, much lower totals across the northern part, So, and that includes the downtown area, while Valley Station has picked up nearly a half an inch of rain. That's been the case working toward Fairdale, Okolona, over toward Fern Creek, where we've had some of the heavier downpours. Mount Washington, about a quarter of an inch of rain there. I'm going to go back to some of our reports. And when we look at some of the damage reports, let's just put the wind on across the area. And let's go back to our home view. We'll go back to our home view here and see if we've had any reports. And you can see the scattering of these little trash cans. That's an indicator that we've had wind strong enough to tumble over trash cans, break a few twigs, but nothing major. And that's some good news, because the damage reports really give an indicator of the strength of the winds. We don't have the anemometers in every location like we did in parts of Breckinridge County, where we knew the winds were at 50 to 55 miles an hour, like we know in Louisville, where the winds were at 48 miles an hour, 41 miles an hour. So we go back to the radar view to just see what we have. Again, watching the warning to our south for another 10 minutes. That is the lone severe thunderstorm warning that we have. It is the one that has the potential, and it's continuing to move off to the east at about 50 miles an hour. Next in line would be crossing just south of Radcliffe, pushing closer to I-65. You can see they're just trimming up the back edge of that warning as we now continue to condense it. So it's not been extended yet, but it has been trimmed on the back side of that, just noting that that warning will continue pushing to the east. Brian?
All right, Kevin, we got our crews right now heading out to the roads, kind of give you guys an idea of what things are looking like on the roadways as you venture out this morning. So we'll have those images coming up on Sunrise as well. Just checking a lot of the social media reports. A lot of you are waking up. I know it's not fun to have 2 mornings in a row. We got to deal with severe weather and lightning, at least lightning and thunder waking up, right? But here we go with this next round moving through. Again, so far, it's mainly just been rain and wind and lightning moving through and some small hail. The strongest of the system still looks to be the initial line here that's moving over Bullitt County. Let me check and see into Shepherdsville. So I have an update there. 70 degrees is the current temperature, but that pocket of wind. And in fact, you can look at the track on that as it was moving across from Breckinridge County into northern Hardin County, and then moved right into Bullitt. And notice that the signal is not as strong with it as it moves into southern Bullitt. But that's the strongest one I've seen so far that it had any type of wind with it. Otherwise, it's been mainly just a wall of lightning and rain, which right now I can tell that lightning is really focused into southeast Jefferson County, Fern Creek area, all the way into portions of, say, Simpsonville, Kevin.
Yeah, I think the storm tracker's been deployed. If we can see an image from that, I'd love to show that before we bail out here at 4:30. And I know the newsroom is working on making some phone calls down to the south across parts of Hardin County just to see if there have been any reports of damage with any of those storms moving through. At this point, we don't have any, and typically by now, though it is 4 o'clock in the morning, but typically if it's a massive deal, we would know that there have been some issues. At this point, none to report, at least that we know of, but we continue to work to get more of that information for you. Again, watching the storm that has the warning, not been extended just yet. We'll see if this gets pushed back, but I can't imagine that with 50-mile-per-hour winds being reported by the actual sensors in its path, knowing that we don't have any damage reports yet, that the warning would be extended. So I have a feeling that by the time we hit 4:30, we may see this completely fade away, and then we'll just wait to see if anything else re-energizes and able to go up towards severe limits. And at that point, additional warnings may be issued. But at this point, this is the lone warning that we have in the viewing area. I'm going to go back to the home view just to point out that the front itself is moving through. And once the back edge of this passes by, the severe weather threat is over. All right. Temperatures will then fall. Northerly winds take over. We have another 7 minutes on the warning to our south. And with that, we will continue seeing it track off to the south as this front eventually squashes all of this out of the area. It's just going to take a little bit of time for that to happen, despite how fast these individual storm cells are moving. Tapping into some of those very strong winds, we can pull some of those down to the surface and have pockets of heavy wind. Some of these storms have shown some signs of rotation. That's the reason we've been here all night with you, is because of that potential threat. Brian?
All right, and we're going to, of course, monitor this since the tornado watch officially does not expire until we get to 9 o'clock in the morning. We won't have to wait until 9 o'clock. Many of you won't. This line of storms continue to shift more and more to the south. I'm looking at the storm tops, still got a couple pockets, and this is one just visual way. The radar, usually what you see, normally all the greens and yellows indicates the rainfall rate and intensity of the rain coming into the area. This is looking at just the height of the storm overall, and this can sometimes tell us a story. And right now, the one in Bullitt County is about 35,000 feet up. You get into Hardin County, it's about 37. Severe is roughly 38 to about 40,000 is when we start to run into issues with either hail or strong damaging winds to start to kick in. So they've been very close to that limit, but just below it. And that's all that really matters. We need to keep it below it. And most of the statements, even being issued for a lot of the storms in advance, especially this particular batch, are mentioning elements like 50-mile-per-hour winds, half-inch size hail, all parameters that are getting your attention, don't get me wrong, but below severe limits. And that's what we'll just have to watch as we get throughout the morning. But we got to get through even these storms back in Indiana. Even though we already have rain that moved through, Kevin, we still have fuel to work with for another 90 minutes or so to the west. So this is kind of a step down process. But once we jump on the other side of that front, you'll know it.
Yeah, you're definitely going to feel that difference. No reports coming out of Hardin County, continuing to see if there are any damage reports. But for the most part, we likely know there aren't a whole lot simply because of the measurements that we've had, simply because of the isolated nature that we've been looking at. The bigger feature of this may wind up being the push of the colder air that most people recognize. The bark a little bit bigger than the bite on this deal, which is fine. We'll take that. But the potential was there through the overnight, and that's the reason we've been here all night, losing sleep, just to make sure we can keep an eye on the radar views for you into the morning hours. Again, we're coming up on 4:30. We're 5 minutes away until that time, and that's when Wave Sunrise will begin. The full day's news is on. Obviously, we have the tornado watch until 9 a.m., so there's still a potential for some of these storms to grow and become strong, but the threat is fairly low. Tawana's going to jump in at 4:30, and she'll be right off the top of the newscast, giving you an unfolded picture of what the next 12 hours looks like as we roll throughout our Wednesday. So we've made it to the middle part of the week here. We've had 2 mornings with rounds of storms. We started out our Tuesday morning with periods of hail, and this morning we're starting out with some high winds and a severe thunderstorm warning that's just south of the city. These showers and thunderstorms moving off to the east, while temperatures may be in the 70s now, they'll come crashing down. We're back in the 30s later this afternoon. If you're headed out this morning, take the coat. You're going to need it later on today. When we move the radar around and sort of look at the general features of what we see, the only warning we have has eased just a bit. This storm has shown signs of weakening somewhat. So the reason for that, the warning has not been extended across parts of southern Bullitt County over into western Nelson County. Still some wind with that, but just below severe limits. Brian?
All right, Kevin, Tawana saying about she'll be joining us here in just a second as we're getting ready for the sunrise show. But Kevin's right. That warning looks like it will likely expire. They already been canceling so much of it out at the moment. So we'll monitor. If you're watching Bullitt County, Spencer County, Nelson County, all the way back into areas of Hardin County, we're watching the trends carefully as these storms evolve through. We're going to likely get some rain and wind. Prepare the kids as they head out to the bus stop this morning, Kevin.
All right, we're going to wind down our coverage here as Wave Sunrise kicks on in just a few minutes. We'll take a commercial break, and then we'll get into complete coverage coming up of the day's news. Shannon Cogan is here, Tawana Andrew, Brian Good, Olivia. They'll all be delivering the weather information, traffic information, and the day's news that you need ahead. For now, you can see that as we look at the showers and thunderstorms to our south, it is the only one warning that we have. I'll zoom this back out just to show the cold front. That is the front. Once that moves through, the threat ends in terms of severe weather. The temperatures will be dropping in a pretty sharp fashion. We're now at 4:28 in the morning. We're going to say goodbye for now. Wave News Sunrise is coming up after this commercial break. Stay with us.